Honestly, I'm probably, since I'm a huge horse guy, like I know our guy Philly Joe is, and Jalapeno, he always bets the gray and the bookie. I'm probably going to not bet this race or maybe bet it live. I'm mainly concerned about the Travers this week, but we'll do a preview. It's the Coke Zero Sugar 400. It is the last race until the playoffs, so a lot of intrigue. I just super speedway racing is tough, as we'll see. You know, one stat that I pulled out is BJ McLeod is running 129 career NASCAR races, right? He's had two top tens. They've both come at Daytona, 2021 and 2022, in the summer race. So what that means is it's not all about speed. It's about keeping it clean, staying out of trouble, being there at the end. BJ McLeod was so far back, he didn't get mixed up in the wrecks, and he was able to do it. So it's unpredictable. Crazy stuff happens, but we're going to talk about it. I'll probably make some live plays. I have a idea of a few plays I'll take. So again, it's at the iconic Daytona International Speedway. It's going to be broadcast to a national audience Saturday night at 7 p.m. It's not a Sunday race this week. It's a Saturday night race, and it's 160 laps, 400 miles, in a super speedway. Same tire setup as they had at Talladega. Last 8 races, an average of 7.5 cautions. So, there's wrecks, there's big ones, not as much as Talladega, but there's wrecks. Practice and qualifying means nothing this week. Since 2018, 11 races, only 3 guys have started inside the top 10. And the last 2 winners, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who won the Daytona 500, started 31st. And Austin Dillon, who won this race last year, the Coke Zero Sugar 400, to get in the playoffs, he started 21st. So that's why it's tough to bet, because it's not necessarily, as we'll see from last year, the fastest car. It's all about just being there at the end, keeping clean, and doing a good job on super speedways. Looking what else. This is the 154th race at Daytona. 14 past champions in the field. So guy like Austin Dillon has won there twice. Ricky Stenhouse won there twice. So just talking about last year, in the summer race, Landon Castle, Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, and David Reagan, who's not even a Cup regular, they all finished in the top 10. I went back and watched that race. There was mayhem and chaos at the end, a big crash, which pretty much collected everybody. Dillon had to win to make the playoffs, and he did. So we're going to get going here again. I don't have a great feel for this. I mean, there's certain trends and stuff I might pick up on, but as far as betting it, it's a tough race. And I think the one thing that's going to come into play, and we'll look at it here, is this playoff picture. So if you look at this playoff picture and guys and teams that are going to do everything they have to get in. So there's 13 guys already in the playoffs, right? Byron Truex, Hamlin, Larson, Buescher, Bell, Chastain, Blaney, Reddick, Joey Logano, Michael McDowell, Ricky Stenhouse. They've all won a race. They are all locked into the playoffs, which begin next week. Now, again, the playoffs, not necessarily everyone is in the playoffs. It's 10 races. So there's full fields of 36. But if you don't qualify, then you can't go to the final 4 and win the chase. So you could theoretically not make the playoffs, win every race, and still not win the cup. So it's different than other sports like golf, where it goes 70, 50, 30. Here, in team sports, you lose, you're out. Here, it's not necessarily like that, but it is, that's just the way it is. So Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick have had great seasons. They haven't won, but both of those Fords, Keselowski and the RFK, 6, Harvick in his final goodbye season in the Stewart-Haas 4. They're pretty much in the playoffs. Bubba Wallace is in the playoffs if the season ended today. However, if someone wins, like last year, for the last race, it was Truex and Blaney were in spots where there were 14 winners. They were in the last two spots. As it turned out, only one of them got in. Turned out it was Ryan Blaney because Austin Dillon won. So now you have a scenario where there's pretty much 15 guys locked in. Bubba Wallace is in, but unless he wins, if he doesn't win the race, he's got to hope that one of these 13 locked in guys wins, or Keselowski or Harvick wins. Because if they don't, and the guys that have to win to get in win, he's out. So guys like an AJ Allmendinger, I just read an article, he's putting it all on the line this week. Alex Bowman, who's done well at Superspeedways. Chase Elliott, who last week was horrible at the Glen. He just didn't have a fast car. You know, Chase Elliott's a guy who is in the playoffs every year. He's a past Cup champion. Fortunately, this year he got hurt in an accident, so he missed a bunch of weeks, and then he was out a week for rough driving. He was suspended, so he's in a position now where he can't point his way in. He's going to have to get in through a win. Austin Cindric, who's won here, you know, he won a Daytona 500. Ryan Preece, who was the fastest car in the spring. Eric Almirola and Eric Jones. Eric Jones has won at this track. So you have guys very, very capable of winning races. And you have guys with, you know, again, high budget organizations. AJ Allmendinger, you know, not necessarily. I was about to say Spire Motorsports. He's with Calling Motorsports, of course, in the 16. But you look at a guy like Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott. They are with Hendrick Motorsports, Chevy. They're big time. You look at Austin Cindric, who's a Penske driver, Ford, very, very big. And then you look at the two Stewart-Haas guys, you know, and Ryan Preece and Eric Almirola in the 41 and 10 respectively. Those are teams that are going to take chances this week. They might short bit. But again, as I've watched the race from last year, the 400, and I obviously watch every race in the Daytona 500 and whatnot, you've got to stay out of trouble. You've got to keep it clean. And even if you do, you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So when we talk about gambling, and that's why I didn't really want to spoil this right off the bat, but talking about gambling, what are we looking for? When we gamble or when we bet, when we wager, we're looking for, you know, likely outcomes. And in a super speedway, it's very hard to forecast and predict those likely outcomes because of a lot of the factors we use, past results, you know, speed, a lot of it just comes into being in the right place at the right time. So this week, the one factor we're going to lean on heavily with our picks is driver intent. So driver intent, as we'll get to at the end, are guys that come in here with a purpose. They want to make the playoffs. So that is that. So last 10 at Daytona, minimum 4 starts. You see Austin Cindric has done very well. Bubba Wallace has not won, which would definitely help him this week, but he's a good super speedway racer. Bowman, Hamlin, Corey LaJoie, even look at a Ty Dillon. Justin Haley, who's won here in a spring race. Ryan Blaney, Austin Dillon, and then Michael McDowell. So the thing that stands out to me and what makes it so hard, and we were just, you know, I just alluded to, is look at the average finish. Nobody in this field is averaging a top 10 finish. And if you look at the top of the points list, with the exception of Denny Hamlin, who's up there, where's William Byron on this list? Where's Martin Truex on this list? They're not there. Joey Logano, where's Joey Logano on this list? So it's guys that, I mean, Bowman's a guy this week that's going to have to do well. He does okay, you know, he does well here, but again, it's tough. Some weeks we go, there's 6 or 7 guys that average a top 10. This week, not so much. Last 10 at Daytona for points. So if we look here, Joey Logano has, and again, we say this all the time. Guys that run well and have nothing to show for it. Generally, that comes into play, at a super speedway where you run well, you have a fast car, but you just get wrecked. Happened to Logano last year, happened to Hamlin last year in this race. So Hamlin, Blaney, Wallace, Elliott, Bowman, Stenhouse, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, and Martin Truex. And again, this does not take into account the Daytona road course, but it does take into account the the 500 and the 400. Okay, which both use the same tires or whatever, both setups. Last 5 at Daytona: Logano, Wallace, Truex, Blaney, Stenhouse, Bowman, Busch, Cindric, Austin Dillon, and Eric Almirola. So if you look at that list, I mean, Bubba Wallace either has to win or hope, or run well to make the playoffs. Alex Bowman is in a must-win situation. Austin Cindric is in a must-win situation. Austin Dillon is in a must-win situation. Eric Almirola is in a must-win situation. So there's a lot of guys. There's going to be desperation there. Guys willing to take chances as far as the race. I looked at last year's race. I watched it, and Austin Dillon, until the end, it was very interesting as far as the end. And I apologize. I'm looking for it on my phone, but Austin Dillon was second in that race last year, and his grandfather is Richard Childress, who owns RCR Racing, who has the 3 and the 8. And at one point of the race, he said to Austin Dillon, "Wait till the last lap to pass." So essentially, just wait till the end, and to pass, as it turned out, Tyler Reddick. So. No, to pass Truex, as it turned out. Truex was in front. I forget who was in front. It doesn't matter. That they told him to wait till the end to pass. He couldn't wait till the end. He waited till like 5 laps left. He made his move. He got ahead. As we talk about at super speedways all the time, though, if you're ahead, that's not necessarily good because there's 2 lines of traffic. It's hard to block. Problematic. So Dillon last year just kind of was in the right place at the right time. Whoever was leading that race, I apologize, I forget, Jalapeno will know, but he was on his bumper, and then he wasn't able to, he made the pass, won the race, got in the playoffs. Laps led: Hamlin, Keselowski, Logano, Elliott. Again, this really doesn't matter though, because it just matters at the end what happened. So there goes that. And then this just illustrates everything I've been talking about. So look at last year. Ryan Preece, he was the fastest car, finished 36th. Eric Jones, second fastest car, finished 37th. Stenhouse and Buescher both had good weeks. They were 3rd and 4th fastest. They finished 1st and 4th. Todd Gilliland, top 5 speed, 27th place finish. Ty Dillon, 6th fastest car. I bet Ty Dillon a couple times, losing proposition. Ty Gibbs, 7th to 25th. Brad Kay, 8th fastest, 22nd. And then 3 guys were tied for 9th. They all ran pretty well. William Byron, Jimmy Johnson, and Joey Logano. This was actually in the Daytona 500. I apologize. This was earlier this year. But then look at guys that finished in the top 5. Chris Bell had the 29th fastest car, and he finished 3rd. Alex Bowman had the 23rd fastest car, and he finished 5th. So again, it's a car race. You want a guy to have a fast car. Common logic would dictate fast car, good finish. As we've discussed again, and that's why this sport can get frustrating and maddening at times. On a road course, it is about speed, but it's about track position. Here, it's not necessarily about track position, because remember, the last two guys that have won have come from 31st and 21st. It's not necessarily about practice and qualifying, right? What it's about is being in the right place at the right time and keeping it clean. So I apologize on this one for being a little negative, but this race is it's like a horse race where the favorite's 4-1. It's a head scratcher because you gotta pick an angle and you gotta kind of go. I mean, if you look, books this week really don't know where to go in that nobody's single digit. That may change after practice and qualifying, but that doesn't matter because practice and qualifying isn't a huge factor here. So if you roll off fast, like last week, I loved Chase Elliott. I bet Chase Elliott early because he had to win. He's good there, but he rolled off slow. He rolled off slow and it screwed him and it screwed me and it screwed all his fans, right? He's the most popular driver because you need track position there. In a super speedway, you don't need track position. What you need is luck. And if you look, even at the street course this year in Chicago, J.J. Yaley had a top 10. He never has a top 10. These guys are back markers. A guy like a David Reagan, who's not even a Cup regular, but a Cody Ware, a Landon Castle, a B.J. McLeod. These guys usually run towards the back. But sometimes being out of the fray, as we keep saying, could be a good thing. So we're going to go and look at our picks for this week. And I'm taking moonshots this week. I'm going to bet a little bit. I'm going to bet a little bit live to see because, again, and the only reason I'm betting live is I'm not necessarily looking at lap times. What I'm looking at is essentially, the field is going to be minimized by guys that are out in a big crash. So obviously I won't bet them. They're in the garage. So then it limits the field. But the things I'd be looking for during the race are, essentially, it's tough because you're looking at lap times, you're looking at speed, you're looking who's fast. So you're kind of looking at that and combining it with kind of track history and just taking a shot and looking for value. If I see a guy leading the race, first of all, they're going to be leading the race by less than a second, right? Because in these super speedway races, they're all bunched together. So if I see a guy like a Logano, a Stenhouse, somebody like that, that's priced between 15 and 20-1 with 100 laps left, which means they're still in the race, or my bad, with 50 laps left, right? Because it's a 160 lap race. With 40 or 50 laps race, those guys are still in there. I'm like, these guys have a history of figuring it out and kind of staying out of it. Yeah, they could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I'll take that chance at 15 or 20-1. That's when I'll fire away on them. So BJ McLeod for a top 10, 7.5-1 at DraftKings. He was 6.5-1 at Caesars. He's a guy really, to say I like someone who's had 2 top 10s in their entire Cup career, but they both come at this race in not just this track, this race, the summer race at Daytona. So when guys are desperate to make the playoffs, including him, he'll never make it. But again, guys are desperate. They take chances. So he just runs his race, stays patient, stays out of trouble, keeps his car clean. It's not that important how fast his car is in this kind of race, as we've said ad nauseum. So, and then I'm taking moonshots on guys. All guys, Chase to me is short at 11-1, but he has to win to make it. And then Austin Dillon, who's won this race twice, and Austin Cindric, the Austins, they're both a nice price to win, and they have to win to get in. So they're going to not necessarily take crazy chances. Like Dillon was patient towards the end of last year's race until, the very end, but their teams are doing everything they can to get these guys in the playoffs. They want to be playoff drivers, especially Chase Elliott, who I haven't looked it up, but I'm assuming every year he's been in Cup, he's been in the playoffs. So, he missed those races. He did, he performed really, really well at the Indy Road course. He just didn't win. And then he didn't do very well at the Glen. So right now, from a points perspective, he has no chance. He has to win. So again, those are my plays. I'll probably sprinkle, I'll be coming back from Saratoga, hopefully with, some money in my pocket. So I'll be listening to the race and hopefully, making some live plays, in that way. So again, this is the playoff pictures. We've said Keselowski and Harvick look pretty safe. Bubba is pretty safe as long as nobody else wins. But at that point, he's got to finish the race, because Ty Gibbs, could get a bunch of stage points, right? I mean, he definitely can, and then there's bonus points for the final stage for finishes. So Bubba Wallace just has to keep it clean and keep it running. So, again, not sure how long this one is. Next week, we start the playoffs in Darlington. I've done well at this track, have more of an opinion. So apologize if I don't have a ton of strong opinions this week, but I think just looking at it logically, that's the way to go. So good luck to everybody. And I'll give a little bonus horse pick. My Travers pick is a horse called Scotland. Scotland is a horse from the barn of Billy Mott, who's really been improving. I'll tell you, I was at the Haskell horse race, and I didn't expect Mage to run that well. They said Mage was a workout short. Mage wasn't going to run that well. He got beat on the square by that horse. I even forget his name. Come from the West Coast, the Richard Mandela horse ridden by Mikey Smith, but he ran really well. But again, he's only run one triple-digit buyer. So from a multi-race perspective, you got to use him because the horse has part of a champion. Now, I haven't checked recently, but he does not have his rider. Luis Saez, who's his rider, not his regular rider. Javier Castellano is, but he decided to ride Arcangelo. Different story for a different day. He really didn't decide. He got his hand forced. So then Luis Saez was going to ride Mage in the Travers. Luis Saez went down, broke his collarbone yesterday. So I'm guessing it's going to be Tyler Gaffleone picking up that mount. National Treasure is a horse who won the Preakness, a Baffert horse. I do not like. I don't really believe in that horse. And then Arcangelo, the Belmont winner, a little concerned, she trained this horse up to the Travers, didn't run in the Jim Dandy. And then you have Forte. Forte just, is a horse that's going to be a short price. So I'm going with Scotland. I like that horse. I think that horse is a second half of the year kind of horse, running his best, coming into his own. So that's my little horse 2 cents. And good luck to everybody, and we'll see you next week.